An 8-year-old boy came running down a cold palace corridor in tears, his right fist clenched so tightly around a hidden object that a passing member of the household staff thought at first he had severely cut his hand. There were no camera crews in that hallway. There was no royal press officer standing by. It was just Prince Louis, 8 years old, sobbing in an empty hallway 30 minutes before a major official court function, clutching a small piece of vintage silver worth less than a basic wristwatch. And then, roughly 4 seconds behind him, a voice cut through the stillness of the palace drawing room, a voice that froze every senior courtier, staff member, and royal aide dead in their tracks. For over a century, the unwritten, ironclad law inside Buckingham Palace has been that senior royals do not argue where anyone can hear them. Disagreements are meant to be quietly logged in a private secretary's diary, handled behind locked oak doors in side rooms, and smoothed over until they vanish entirely. That is not mere politeness. It is an administrative machine, and it has been running without interruption for 100 years. But what happened on this afternoon did not come out as a polite royal correction. Princess Anne strode through those double doors, walked straight across the polished floorboards, and hurled a single razor-sharp sentence directly at Queen Camilla. How dare you hurt him? Before we uncover what Camilla attempted to forcibly strip away from that little boy, why Louis was left hyperventilating in a hallway, and how Prince William and King Charles reacted when the full truth came out, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and turn your notifications on so you never miss an investigation into the stories the palace tries desperately to bury. I am going to hold one specific detail back from you for a few minutes, and I want to be completely transparent about why. There is an official document behind everything that transpired that afternoon, a dry, tedious administrative document, and it is the exact reason this entire story turned into an unprecedented constitutional fallout. If I give it to you right now, it sounds like mundane palace paperwork, and you will shrug at it. Give me 15 minutes to set the scene properly, and when I reveal what was written on that paper, it will make your jaw drop. To understand the sheer magnitude of what occurred, you have to look at the object at the very center of this storm, because every single piece of this story hangs off it. Prince Louis is the youngest of William and Catherine's 3 children. He turned 8 years old earlier this year, and the public has watched him grow up in a manner entirely different from how previous generations of royal children were raised. You have seen him on the Buckingham Palace balcony pulling hilarious faces. You saw him at the Commonwealth Games alongside Prince George and Princess Charlotte, the 3 of them navigating the public eye with a natural, unscripted warmth. That public visibility is not an accident, nor is it a manufactured press strategy. Think about how radically different Louis's upbringing is compared to the generation before him. His father, Prince William, and his uncle, Prince Harry, were raised under a cold, rigid system that treated visible emotion as a character flaw that needed to be systematically trained out of a young boy. Louis, by contrast, is being raised by 2 parents who made a conscious, deliberate decision that their children would be allowed to be human beings first and royals second. That single choice is the quiet revolution currently unfolding inside the House of Windsor. William and Catherine sat down years ago and explicitly rejected the emotional coldness of their own pasts. The children attend school like normal kids. They are photographed officially just a couple of times a year and left completely undisturbed the rest of the time. They are permitted to say they are tired, they are permitted to express frustration, and most importantly, they are permitted to miss loved ones out loud. Sitting at the absolute core of that parenting philosophy is a grandmother none of those 3 children ever had the chance to meet. Princess Diana died in Paris in August 1997, more than 2 decades before Prince Louis was born. Louis has no living memory of her, and never will. Yet her presence lives inside their home every single day because William ensured it. He does it through framed photographs on side tables, through bedtime stories told night after night, and through small, personal heirlooms kept for the explicit purpose of being passed down. Official statements and public anniversary tributes are for the media. What happens inside the family home is for the children. William was just 15 years old in September 1997, forced to walk behind his mother's coffin in a dark suit while millions of strangers stared at him. Nobody protected him from that trauma. He has spent his entire adult life ensuring that his own children receive the emotional protection he was denied. Everything that transpired in that palace drawing room happened because a man who lost his mother at 15 swore his children would never be told to put her memory away. When the family relocated to Forest Lodge in Windsor Great Park, Diana's personal items moved with them. Which brings us directly to the morning of the incident. A private family gathering had been arranged in the palace reception rooms prior to a major state function. Senior royals were gathering 30 minutes beforehand, that familiar, tense routine of standing around with untouched drinks while the motorcade is organized outside. Earlier that morning, William had given his youngest son a gift, a modest, vintage silver lapel pin. This was not an item from the official royal collection. There was no serial number attached to it, no insurance ledger tracking its movement, and no palace curator required to sign it out of a vault. It was a simple, elegant silver pin that belonged personally to Princess Diana in the early 1990s. William had kept it in his private safe for years and decided to pass it down to his youngest son that morning as a quiet, intimate act of family continuity. The timing of William's gesture is profoundly telling. He did not hand it to Louis on Christmas, on his birthday, or during a high-profile anniversary. He gave it to him on an ordinary morning before a routine courtwork event. He wanted it to feel normal. He wanted the 8-year-old boy to carry his grandmother's pin in his jacket pocket the way any normal child carries a keepsake from a grandparent, without fanfare or public theater. Picture an 8-year-old boy walking into a room of adults with that pin pinned inside his blazer. He isn't thinking about royal protocol or international headlines. He is thinking that he is carrying a piece of his grandmother with him, and that his father trusted him enough to hold on to it. As he walked into the reception room, staff noticed Louis continually pressing his right hand flat against the front of his jacket, checking again and again that the pin was still safely pinned to his lining. That was his only action. Keep that image in your mind, because everything that followed was triggered entirely by a young boy wearing his grandmother's pin inside his own blazer. The atmosphere in those pre-event reception rooms is usually relaxed. Family members stand in small groups, staff move around with trays, and everyone keeps one eye on the clock. But then, Queen Camilla spotted the small flash of silver tucked inside Prince Louis's jacket lining. According to sources close to household staff who were present in the room, Camilla walked straight past Prince William. She walked straight past Princess Catherine. She marched directly up to the 8-year-old boy. Consider the sheer gravity of that choice. Both of the child's parents were standing just a few yards away. Either of them could have been pulled aside in 4 seconds for a quiet adult conversation. Instead, the confrontation was directed straight at the child. Camilla told Louis that the silver pin was entirely inappropriate for a young prince to wear at an official court function. She framed her objection around strict court protocol, formal dress standards, and historical precedent using language that no 8-year-old could possibly comprehend. And she did it in front of everyone. Staff holding trays, senior aides clutching briefing folders, and distant relatives holding drinks all watched as an 8-year-old boy was publicly admonished and told that something he was wearing was wrong. Camilla then went further. She demanded that the pin be immediately removed and handed over to palace staff for safekeeping, arguing that personal family mementos have no place in a formal public court environment where every detail is dissected by the press. Try to see this moment from where the child was standing. He is 8 years old. One of the most powerful adults in his life is standing over him, telling him that a precious item given to him by his father is against the rules and must be surrendered to a stranger. He knew nothing about protocol. He only knew one thing with total terrifying clarity. His dad had trusted him with his grandmother's pin that morning, and now it was being taken away. Louis tried desperately to defend himself. He explained it the only way an 8-year-old knows how, honestly and through tears. He told her his father had given it to him. He told her it belonged to his grandmother, Princess Diana. He told her he was holding it so he could remember her. He laid out the raw, simple truth in front of a room full of adults. In a normal family, that would have been the end of it. Any adult with an ounce of empathy would have smiled, patted the boy on the shoulder, and said, "Of course, keep it in your pocket, sweetie. If that had happened, this story would not exist." Instead, Camilla doubled down. She sternly informed the boy that palace rules on formal court attire were absolute and that individual exceptions could not be made for anyone. Think about the sheer cruelty of that logic. An absolute rule enforced on an 8-year-old child over a piece of silver the size of a fingernail inside a private room before a single camera had even flashed. It stopped being an argument about court dress the second Louis uttered his grandmother's name. From that moment on, every single person in that room knew exactly whose pin was on that jacket. Overwhelmed by the aggressive tone, terrified of breaking royal rules, and panicked that his father's gift was about to be confiscated, Louis broke. He grabbed the pin, slammed his fist tightly over his blazer, turned around, and bolted out of the drawing room, searching desperately for a quiet corner in the endless palace corridors where he could hide and cry. That is the precise second Princess Anne walked around the corner. Palace corridors are long, drafty, and offer zero hiding spots for a distressed child. Louis had made it halfway down the hallway before breaking down by a window frame. The timing was absolute destiny. 10 seconds earlier or later, and this incident would have been swept under the rug, managed by press officers, and buried forever. Instead, the Princess Royal stepped into the corridor and found her great-nephew with his face buried in his hands, his small frame shaking violently. Anne didn't call for a nanny. She didn't call for a staff member. She immediately crouched down on the cold floor, brought herself to eye level with Louis, and waited patiently until he could breathe well enough to speak. He told her what had happened in the broken, breathless way an 8-year-old speaks when he is sobbing. She listened to every word. Then, she asked him one final question. Who had said those things to him? Louis gave her the name. Think about what Princess Anne was stepping into. She was about to confront the Queen, her brother's wife, in front of senior aides and family, just minutes before a high-profile public function with the royal motorcade waiting outside. Every institutional instinct trained into a royal over 70 years dictates that you remain quiet, handle it later through private secretaries, and preserve public appearances at all costs. Anne ignored every single one of those rules. She did not seek out Catherine first. She did not consult a private secretary. She took the word of the 8-year-old boy, stood up, and marched straight back down the corridor into the reception room. Witnesses describe Princess Anne walking straight across the room, bypassing aides and family members, until she was standing inches from Queen Camilla. She didn't whisper. She didn't ask for a private side room. She looked Camilla dead in the eyes and launched an immediate, unyielding strike. How dare you hurt him? Before Camilla could even formulate a response, Anne delivered 2 more words that cut through the room like a physical blow. Back off. Anne informed the Queen, in front of personal secretaries, domestic staff, and senior family members, that weaponizing court protocol against a child carrying a quiet memory of his deceased grandmother was disgusting, unacceptable, and completely alien to how a real family operates. She said it in a completely level, icy tone, no shouting, no dramatic theatrics, just pure, devastating authority. When Camilla attempted to interject, Anne cut her off with those same 2 words, spoken with absolute finality, back off. The room plunged into dead silence. Aides holding car schedules froze. Courtiers stopped mid-sentence. In their entire professional careers, not a single person in that room had ever witnessed a queen consort spoken to, with such raw, unmitigated condemnation. To comprehend why Anne's words hit with nuclear force, you have to understand who Princess Anne is within the machinery of the royal household. Her power has nothing to do with royal titles or rank. Rank meant absolutely nothing in that drawing room.